Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Funny joke from Kermit Apios I saw on Twitter, who wrote, "Be careful when you order your Trump sneakers. It says they weigh 2 pounds, but they actually weigh 28 pounds. Also, they have no soul." Hey, I know not everybody listens to the weekend episodes. Saturdays in particular was very strong. If you missed that one, I highly recommend you download Saturday. Shane Gillis hosted Saturday Night Live. Mixed reviews. I thought it was pretty good. I seem to be unpopular of that opinion. Before I get to the monologue, since I talked about Trump sneakers, let's start with a sketch about Trump sneakers. The setup here is that Shane is portraying a regular guy who's bad at basketball and stuff, and then he gets some Trump sneakers.
Good at basketball? No, they give me the power to say I'm good at basketball and then double down on that until people actually start to believe it.
Now he gets whatever he wants.
Mr. Mitchell, everybody's saying I should have your office because my cubicle is a disaster right now.
Well, can I have a minute to gather my things?
Bye-bye.
He gets whoever he wants.
Wow, that was the most fantastic lovemaking you've ever had.
Not really. It only lasted
2 hours. That was a 2-hour love session. You had a big O in there, a very big O, but...
I did? Oh. Want to go again?
I'd love to, but you're too tired.
All right, so you get the joke there. Later in the sketch, James Austin Johnson shows up as, I guess, actual Trump, and we get my predicted dueling Trumps.
You know, in many ways, the real magic has been inside of you all along.
Wrong. It comes from the shoes, and you're coming off as very stupid and, frankly, quite rude walking in here like this.
My work here is done in terms of basketball, movie pastiche, and with regard to shoes, I think we've done a wonderful...
White men can Trump. Oh.
As for the monologue, I'm going to make some trims here to tighten up crowd and pacing and stuff. But let's listen to Shane Gillis.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shane Gillis.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm here. Most of you probably have no idea who I am. I was fired from this show a while ago, but if, don't look that up, please. If you don't know who I am, please don't Google that. It's fine. Don't even worry about it. I don't know. I probably shouldn't be up here, honestly. I should be home. I should be a high school football coach. That's what I should be. Like, God molded me perfectly to be a high school football coach / 9th grade sex education teacher.
Now, if you watch his body language, he's just shucking jokes. It's the same thing I said about his special. He's just like, hey, I'm a big goofy guy, and these are just jokes. And I think people are taking this way too seriously. About 2.5 minutes into the monologue, we get our first controversy. He said a word, and it upset people.
My mom asked me, she's like, when did we stop being best friends? And she's right. We used to be best friends. You remember that when you were a little boy and you loved your mom and you thought she was the cool. You remember when you were gay? You remember when you were just a gay little boy? Every little boy is just their mom's gay best friend. There's literally zero difference. I was gay for my mom. She would pick me up from school. I'd hop in the van. I'd be like, girl, tell me about your day. I thought she was cool. I would listen to her music. I'd be like, bam, bam, ba-dam, bam, bam, bam. Let's go, girls. I would dance for her. She'd be like, look at my little dancer.
Here at about the 4-minute, 10-second mark, he goes into, if you've seen his specials, some familiar Down syndrome material. He gets criticized over this material a lot, and maybe I'm just a jerk face. This does not sound hateful to me.
I don't know if you guys, if you can tell by looking at me, but I do have family members with Down syndrome. It almost got me. I dodged it, but it nicked me. It's funny. Look, I don't have any material that can be on TV, all right? I'm trying my best. Also, this place is extremely well lit. I can see everyone not enjoying it. This is, just the most nervous I've ever been. Don't clap now. Shut up. No, I brought up Down syndrome. You can always tell who's never been around Down syndrome when you bring it up. Like if I tell people, if I'm like, yeah, I have family members with Down syndrome, people that have never been around it are always like, oh, like it's the end of the world. Like, oh, are they okay? Are they doing? It's like they're doing better than everybody I know. They're the only ones having a good time pretty consistently. They're not worried about the election. They're having a good time.
Later in that routine, he does use the R word as the tag in a long story, but again, in context, it just doesn't sound hateful. Collider wrote, the Shane Gillis episode of Saturday Night Live was rough to watch. Picking out the best sketches of the night was a lot harder than you'd think, and it was because none of them were particularly great. Well, that's been true for 2+ years, guys. Not sure we should blame Shane for that, perhaps the writers. At every turn, every sketch had something that was just insulting to people for no reason. From a sketch about a sex doll mocking people with amblyopia to a frankly distasteful Forrest Gump sketch, the episode left audiences wondering, who is this for? People who like to laugh at sketch comedy shows. That's who it's for. An episode that felt like it was never going to end. Gillis's grand debut on the stage of Studio 8H was beyond painful to watch. What's the worst possible way to remake Like Mike in 2024 by using that same premise, but applying it to Donald Trump's nearly $400 sneakers that are bright red, blue, and gold? The idea is that Gillis is playing a man who's really bad at basketball and talking to anyone, but when he wears his Trump shoes, he can suddenly convince everyone that he's good at this stuff. Yeah, pretty funny. Did he miss the shot? No, he didn't. He thought he did, but he didn't. He totally made it up. Yeah, it was a funny sketch. I just played it. The Daily Beast wrote, Shane Gillis bombs on SNL with Down syndrome and gay jokes. So does this monologue have the same victory lap vibes of Norm Macdonald's 1999 monologue after he was fired? Not quite, because it doesn't seem like there was any real beef between Gillis and the people running the show. Perhaps if the criticism hadn't kept growing as it did, Lorne Michaels would have kept Gillis on, regardless of whatever racist or homophobic thing he'd said in the past. This is the same guy who let Donald Trump host in 2015 after all, despite the cast's obvious discomfort. But my favorite take of the night is from franktorres.org. Have you noticed the young lady guitarist in the band? You have to watch her reactions. It's fascinating. And Frank Torres writes, the Saturday Night Live band is in a very tough spot during each new episode of the show. They have to play on these superstar hosts and keep a poker face during their entire monologue. The spotlight landed on guitarist Maddie Rice. While Rice makes several faces during the monologue, the one that social media ran with was the one where she appeared annoyed at Gillis's remarks. Was she upset? Was she trying to hold a poker face? Only she knows the answer to that. The rest of the band was more relaxed. A few smiled and softly chuckled. Saxophonist Lenny Pickett, who's usually the thermometer during these show openings, was mostly neutral, with an occasional smile and polite applause for Gillis's dad. Oh, and for whatever it's worth, everybody, at the end of the show, in the credits, Bowen Yang hugged Shane Gillis. I'm sure we'll talk more about this tomorrow. The Daily Beast caught up with Rory Scovel. Again, if you missed Saturday's podcast, I played a clip from Rory's special. Are people adding laughter to comedy specials? I'm not saying Rory did, but is that a thing that happens in the industry? Listen to Saturday's episode. From the Daily Beast, Rory says, I don't appreciate a band that just kind of always puts out the same album. Even if they're putting out an album that I don't end up liking, I always appreciate that at least they try to do something slightly different than what they've done before. In terms of comedy, he says he has no interest in seeing a new hour from someone who hasn't learned anything or hasn't grown or evolved or changed in any way. Chappelle. Sorry, I keep coughing during the recordings, and, I apologize for that. Who knows? At the end of the day, you probably end up losing some people. He's been getting a little more political, and he says, who knows? At the end of the day, you probably end up losing some people because they just can't stand jokes about politics, despite the fact that they'd spend their free time at a rally. But I think at some point, you kind of get pushed to the point where you want to speak out and say what you really think. And if you could turn it into something that entertains people or gets them to laugh, or who knows, maybe open their eyes a little bit to other people's situations. He jokes about his Carlin phase and says, but then I walked away from that being like, the Carlin thing is kind of interesting. Not that you want to go, I'm going to try to be Carlin. I don't want to do that. But he does want to see what his version of the political rant with a message would look like. Tig Notaro has a new special out today. It is called Hello Again on Amazon Prime Video. I teach a college class on Monday nights, so you're going to have to give me a couple days to get around to watching that one. Tig finds humor in situations ranging from the everyday to the bizarre, crafting comedy out of hallucinatory text messages, a botched meeting with a Hollywood heavyweight, and, comedy rule of 3, a late-night encounter with a mustache fireman who has her questioning everything. Amy Schumer and Will Forte have signed on for a new Netflix comedy movie, Kinda Pregnant. Now, just there, I see Netflix movie, and I'm like, Sandler, here we go again. Well, wait for the twist, John. The synopsis is, jealous of her best friend's pregnancy, Lainey wears a fake baby bump and accidentally meets the man of her dreams. Guess who produces this? That's right, Amy Schumer and, say it with me, Adam Sandler. Oh, good. An Amy Schumer, Adam Sandler produced thing on Netflix. Looking forward to that. Lil Dicky Dave Byrd was on the Hot Ones podcast, and he said, I'm not going to name names, but there are several instances where episodes have been written about a particular celebrity. Oftentimes it ends up being a rapper, and they don't show up on the day, and then I immediately have to totally reimagine and rewrite the scene on the spot, call someone else, and hope someone else is in town. I've had to bring $20,000 in a backpack for whoever shows up that day. And then I left the backpack at catering at lunch, and then I was like shooting another scene. I'm like, oh my God, $20,000. And I sprinted to go get my backpack. It was still there. And then an artist came and actually didn't even charge anything. Anyway, it's always very stressful. It's much easier as time gets on. In season 1, I'm like, trust me. Season 3, I'm like, Brad Pitt. I know you've seen it. It gets easier as time goes on. The show, unfortunately, is on a hiatus so Byrd can focus on his music. Hopefully that show comes back. Also, a comedian who's into music is Phil Wang, who you were picturing naked in the shower after yesterday's podcast. I know you were. And you're doing it right now, too. Phil Wang, naked in the shower. You're thinking about it. He tells Chortle, that's really me singing in Wonka. Here's a little behind-the-scenes bragging. I was told by someone on Wonka that, sometimes in movies they have to correct a singer if they're not a professional singer in post-production, and they didn't have to correct me at all. I hit all the notes. All 5 notes I was given, I hit them spot on. Dusty Slay, speaking to AL as in Alabama.com, AL.com, said, I was trying to be a Southern comic. Look at me. I'm real Southern, right? I was wearing overalls and no shoes to perform. And it wasn't going very well, so I quit doing stand-up comedy. And then in 2008, my friend invited me to do a show, and he was like, why don't you try comedy again? So we write this bit about the letters of the alphabet. I go out and do this bit, and it's on YouTube and on my album, Making That Fudge. But I do it in front of an audience of people, in front of a bunch of comedians that never heard of me, and I crushed. Every show wasn't like that. I wasn't crushing every time, but that hooked me. I was like, I can't wait to get back up there and do it again. Jim Norton spoke to I-95 Rock about audiences. Rock was interested. Our audience is different now. Now, I've worked with Jim Norton quite a lot. His on-stage persona and his real-life personality are different. When you're hanging out with Jim Norton in real life, he's very thoughtful and not talking about hookers in Vegas all day. So when I read this quote, picture a very insightful Jim Norton probably saying this soft-spoken. Jim said, it's been happening a lot longer than just 2 years. It's not just comedy. It's that everybody's attacking everybody. Everyone's using everyone else to pretend to be angry so they can get a little attention for themselves. There's been a decent amount of pushback on it, but I think the difference now is that everybody in the audience is performing as well. It's like you have a guy on stage and the people in the audience are performing, pretending they're upset, or going on social media pretending they're upset. It died down a little bit, but that's the reason for it. Everybody's their own corporation now. So people are trying to get some credibility by acting like I'm upset publicly. Well, people come and give me some attention. Everybody's got a voice, which is fine. Everybody wants to let everyone else know how hurt they are. It's not just comedy. It's kind of everywhere being affected by it. If you enjoy what I do here, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. I will take your money, and it's Monday, and I teach on Monday nights. Usually what I do is I drive past the Donut Chain. I go to that smoothie place, and I'll get a buffalo wrap and a beach bum. I think it's called beach bum. I don't know. It's like I told people it was raspberry, but I looked it up. Apparently it's strawberry with some dark chocolate in it. Very good. So I'll get a buffalo wrap and one of those, and eat that before class. So that's like lunch dinner on Mondays. buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. I've mentioned this before. Israel Hamas is a very touchy subject and a lot there to not laugh about. But I also feel that comedy should discuss important issues, and I don't want to ignore the topic. But when this topic comes up, I tend to put it in the second half. If you listen every day, you kind of feel there's the first half of the podcast before the commercial break is usually headlines and hits, and then I go a little deeper in the second half. This from The Guardian, and they interviewed Bassem Youssef, who I just find fascinating, like a really, really interesting guy. And they write, Youssef opens his show with a disclaimer to the audience members who know him as the Egyptian Jon Stewart. Youssef says, I know some of you are used to me performing in Arabic, but the show will be in English, the language of the infidels. In the show, Youssef frequently refers to Joe Biden as Genocide Joe. By the way, for those of you keeping score at home that think I pile on Trump all the time, please note I'm doing this story right now. Youssef frequently refers to Joe Biden as Genocide Joe, but he never directly mentions the Israel-Gaza war, which birthed the nickname. He tells The Guardian that's a deliberate choice. Youssef says, I don't want to be capitalizing on this right now as it's happening. It's not the story I want to tell. I wanted to tell my story. He says he was surprised to be put on a pedestal after his appearance with Piers Morgan. When people say, thank you for speaking up, thank you for being our voice, that's a trigger sentence for me. I'm a human being and I have limitations. I can't be someone who's the face of that much of a cause. I do what I can, but sometimes it'll be beyond my ability. If you've never seen the 30-minute clip of Bassem with Piers Morgan, it is amazing. Here is the opening. Buckle up. The Guardian called it a roller coaster ride, and I agree. But here, listen, I want his words to speak for themselves.
How are they doing? But we're used to that. I mean, it's just like it's very repetitive. We're used to that. We're used to them being bombed every time and moving from one place to the other. It's just like those Palestinians. They're very dramatic. Israel killing us. But they never die. I mean, they always come back. They're very difficult to kill, very difficult people to kill. I know because I'm married to one. I tried many times, couldn't kill her.
I mean, there's a dark humor there, and I understand why. Because
no, it's not dark humor. I try to get to her every time, but she uses our kids as human shields. I can never take her out.
Right? So he's doing this wonderful mix of very pointed political observation with jokes in the middle. You could see Piers like the joke is funny, but, do you want to laugh during the subject? And I just think this is comedy at its best because he's using humor to make wonderful, wonderful points. He said he turned down Piers Morgan invitation twice before giving in the third time. He said it's the contradictory expectation of his dual audience. If I was too much, I could lose my career here in the U.S. If it was not enough, I'd lose my career in the Arab world. I was going in knowing it was a lose-lose situation. So why do it? I don't know. Until now, I don't have a clear answer. And I'll follow that up with this. Comedian Matt Rife inducted into the Mohegan Suns Walk of Fame. Wow, what an honor. Congratulations to Matt Rife, 28 years old and already in the Mohegan Suns Walk of Fame. Who else is in the Hall of Fame, John? Well, Taylor Swift, Earth, Wind and Fire, and Rascal Flatts. He's the 41st inductee into the Mohegan Suns Arena Walk of Fame. Now I'm curious. Now I'm looking it up. And I can't find the full list. Some other names, Chris Rock, Toby Keith, New Kids on the Block, Bon Jovi, and Matt Rife. Not bad. That's your comedy news for today. See you tomorrow.